Purugly is the second boss of the 2025 Lunar New Year event in PokeMMO. Purugly is the second boss of the 2025 Lunar New Year event in PokeMMO. If we assume that the first boss spawned, quote unquote, at 00 UTC yesterday, then it should be a 20-hour release cycle for this boss. So it's not a 24-hour release cycle. We'll have more data on that for the third boss. I'll put perspective times up, though, in the raid info doc in the description. If you've been following along previously, I recommend that you breed fighting types for the raids, and this is also true. I'll link to that video as well in case you are new and want to see what was recommended. Those recommendations still hold so far, given that we're seeing that it's the same bosses from the previous year. Quick look at the locations. Kanto Route 7 is probably easiest. I did Unova because I was already in that region. The rest are on the screen. Pause if you need it. The mechanics are somewhat interesting. There's one that we need to worry about. Given the format that I usually take where we put the lead mechanic at 100%, this one doesn't exactly follow that sequence. It's just an ongoing mechanic throughout the fight, and that is the first mon to move on your side of the field, that's the player side, gets flinched every turn. So that's if a Murkrow goes first, or if and has priority, or if another Pokemon is just fast and goes first, that Pokemon will be flinched that turn. So things like Covert Cloak are going to be useful. Pokemon with Inner Focus are going to be useful that are speedy, looking at Mian Xiao, potentially Lucario, and otherwise just generally fast Pokemon with the ability to deal with that via Covert Cloak. You can ignore it for the most part. It's helpful to have those things to deal with it a bit better, as long as you're bringing a lot of fighting types. I imagine that Sun would also work well for this, but we just did fighting types because that's what we had available to us. The rest of the mechanics are largely ignorable as well. Hone Claws does boost its attack. You will also proc its type policy. I think it's easier to just activate the type policy and then haze it later. And then Charm will happen at 50% and Sleep will happen at 20%. Purugly does have a pretty high base speed, so you want to set Tailwind both on the first turn and the fifth turn when it wears off. The best mon, I think, to start would be a Crobat with Inner Focus and Rocky Helmet. There's a chance that it does live if the boss doesn't target it. So it could potentially live to set Tailwind and then haze on the second turn. That would be my recommendation. You can also just have backup Murkrows with Covert Cloak. This is to deal with the flinch. And then they can use haze or Tailwind as needed on turn 2 or turn 5. And a quick cheat sheet, even though it's not really necessary, as there's only like 2 or 3 mechanics that you have to worry about. It's just the Tailwind on turn 1 helps you outspeed the boss. The boss does have speed decay. It loses about 10% of its speed after every action taken. You can get away with not tailwinding. You'll see in our fight that we missed the tailwind on the second one due to miscommunication. It's not a big deal. You can probably still beat it without tailwind. It just makes it much more consistent with. I have the tailwind haze in the player 1 slot. Crobat can potentially live to haze that second turn. Otherwise, that player can also bring a Murkrow. It doesn't really matter. You could have 2 or 3 Murkrows across all of your players and still probably be reasonably successful with the fight. And getting into the battle itself, I'm the Crobat lead on the left, clicking Tailwind to start us off. Inner Focus dodges that flinch chance. You see it looks like Fake Out. I think the actual flavor text is Lunge. Crobat's a really great utility Pokemon to have as sort of a backup to Murkrow in case Prankster doesn't work, or in this case, flinches happen. Even though you can get around it with the Covert Cloak, it's still a very nice to have, especially with Rocky Helmet on it, doing a little bit of chip damage. A little bit of miscommunication on our part here. We wanted to save a Murkrow for turn 5. I typed into the battle log that I was doing it. Apparently Rainer had already typed that in. That's my bad. I should have checked. But basically, this actually pulls up an interesting situation. This is about the only time that I would ever recommend you switch out for a raid. This is if you need to save a Pokemon that's in for a later portion of the fight. We can deal with the damage. We would rather have that Tailwind, so we send in the Scizor, and I believe it lives anyway. My Medicham on that turn ate the Fake Out, so we got no damage out of it. Still beat the boss pretty handily. So that's just a testament to you can ignore the. I keep saying Fake Out. It's like a lunge, flinch, whatever. It's the flinch of the whatever Pokemon moves first on your side. In this case, we had an Inner Focus Lucario save the day. It was able to use an attack and not get flinched because of Inner Focus. And otherwise, the rest of the fight plays out pretty straightforward. We're just kind of smacking it. We try to get the Murkrow back in, but it dies to the flinch anyway because it took that Fake Out last time, which is unfortunate. The Fake Out plus the other damage, I think, from the ad. So we don't have Tailwind up. You'll see that we have 4 Pokemon on the field. We should all have 2 remaining each, I think, potentially more. So there's so much damage to go around with fighting. I imagine Sun would be fine here too. We get the inner focus damage off. Then the Heracross actually moves before Purugly's second action because that's speed decay, and that's the fight. Let me know if you have any questions. Check the doc for updates, and that's it. Have a good one.